Good morning, gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you on a number of topics today, and I will tell you, and you're all aware, I haven't made a video for a few days because I was working on my latest novel, the part three of my series with my favorite detective, John Matthews. And the Spy 3 is should be hitting the bookstalls very soon. So I was busy with my book, and now that it's completed, that it's in the editing stage, the final stage, I thought I'd go back to my hobby of making some shorts and movies and videos on my favorite theme, that is war, military history, and strategy, and not forgetting politics. Gentlemen, I'm going to focus today on Russia and, of course, also in America. In particular, I'm going to focus on Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And both these gentlemen have made stupendous, I would say stupendous means very important visits to Beijing. And China has become like the ancient Middle Kingdom. During the days of centuries ago, China was known as the Middle Kingdom, and all the world's kings and leaders congregated to China because China was the center of civilization. And China, one difference with India is that China has never been colonized by any country. And basically, the Chinese were on their own while India remained a slave nation for 1,000 years. 800 years under Muslim rule and 200 almost under the British rule. In contrast, in India, of course, the British rule was very benign, very beneficial to the Indians, unlike the Muslim rule, which was basically destructive. Now, coming down to these two gentlemen, Donald Trump first has made a visit to Beijing. I think it was a very successful visit, given the circumstances. The Chinese were, of course, flattered that Donald Trump has gone there, and they laid out the red carpet for him. And Donald Trump had gone with two points, two contentious points he wanted to solve. First, he wanted to get the Chinese view on Iran, and he wanted to make sure that tomorrow the Chinese are on board with him as far as Iran is concerned. Secondly, he was prepared to make some concessions on Taiwan for the time being. I'm very sure he's not going to make permanent concessions on Taiwan at all. In other words, he wanted to have a relationship with China, a détente, and he had promised to help China economically. Because the fact remains that China is in dire economic straits. It may be having an economy about $20 trillion, no doubt about it, but that's creaking, like the door, and it could collapse anytime. And that is what is the pointed issue. The housing sector has collapsed. The thousands of flats and colonies which they had built up in the new cities are empty. There's nobody to buy it. And the Chinese are getting very restive. As far as Putin is concerned, I think he's burnt all his bridges. I've been a great admirer of Vladimir Putin, but I've said even earlier he's not a patch on Joseph Stalin. And I think once Donald Trump had made a visit to Beijing, uh, Vladimir Putin, had to follow suit. He just decided that I must also go there because he felt being left out. One fact which Putin must appreciate is that Russia is no longer a global power. And now there are only two major powers in the world. That is, one is the United States, and of course, at the lower level is China. Russia doesn't stand anywhere. And Russia spoiled its own copybook by invading Ukraine and then fighting a battle for 4 years with no tangible result. By now, the Russian army, which is supposed to be so formidable, should have overrun Ukraine, but they haven't been able to do it. They captured some area in the Donbass region, and they are making all sorts of schemes here and there. And now war has come home to Moscow. Moscow is getting bombed by Ukraine. And Ukraine is getting support from the European nations and NATO. There's no doubt about it. I think Putin knew this all along. And yet he ventured into this battle with Ukraine, which was a very stupid thing to do. He should have avoided it, looked for other means, or he should have applied the sledgehammer, the one sledgehammer and one big blow and occupied the entire Ukraine. He didn't do that. Rather, he didn't have the capacity. And now, as per my reports which are coming, I've been having a close association with the Russian Air Force also when I was in service. And my force has been the Russian aircraft. And so, a lot of interaction with the Russians. I find the reports which are coming to me from Russia are not very healthy. There's a bit of a demoralization in the Russian armed forces, and the Russian people are getting fed up of this fight. And Russia has lost 600,000 men, casualties in this war over 4 years. Russia can't afford it, and that is why they're looking for recruits from all over. Even there's some 200 to 300 Indians fighting on the side of the Russians, and they're being looked after very well. I will say this much. And again, he's looking for North Koreans to fight. He's looking for Africans to fight. I mean, there's no end to it. But what's he going to do about it? So he was got really frightened because China is the biggest backer of Putin, and he immediately rushed to Beijing, and Beijing also laid out the red carpet for him. Now, what is the aim of both these men? The American aim, as I've already clear enunciated, and that is very clear. They want to isolate Iran, and they have succeeded. I think Iran is isolated. The only way Iran is surviving is because of the element of fear which is there in the GCC countries that their civilization would get wiped out if the battle with Iran continues. So they are putting pressure on the Americans not to bomb Iran. Whether they're right or wrong, I can't comment about it because I don't believe in destruction of any civilization, and it's not a good thing if that should happen. So it's always peace is the better point forward. But I tell you, Iran is not going to see reason. It's like a renegade, and until you crush the renegade, kill him, obliterate him, there's no way that Iran can be nullified. I mean, the threat from Iran can be nullified. So whether the GCC countries like it or not, there's no end to the solution in Iran, as far as Iran is concerned. As far as Russia is concerned, I told you Russia doesn't have the manpower and look for a face-saving way out. Russia is in serious problem economically also, and politically also. Their enclave at Kaliningrad, which is the heart of Europe, is in serious trouble. The entire European nations have cut off all access to that enclave, and the net result is everything has to be supplied by sea, and the cost is 5 times of supplying by train and road, which the Russians were doing it earlier. So, gentlemen, there's a lot of problems which are coming in, but then with these two countries, that is Russia and America, I have one thing to say that America is the leader while Russia is now the follower. I think when Putin was called by uh, Donald Trump to Alaska, that was the best time for Putin to strike a deal. Putin got a lot of respect from Donald Trump, and he also admires him. And in his scheme of things, he's got a definite plan for the Russians. And I think Putin should have realized that. And the definite plan is to try to wean him away from China and make him in the American sphere. But it's not being done. Putin is not playing ball. And bigger problem is the NATO nations. Now, the NATO nations, I must have a word here, are as good as dead. I remember if you're reading about the dodo, dead as the dodo is a phrase in the English language. Dodo is a bird which used to be there in Indonesia, about 200 years back, and now it's become obsolete. It's extinct. It doesn't exist. There's no other species left. So, as far as NATO is concerned, it's as dead as the dodo. It doesn't have the power. But if Donald Trump really strikes hard, I think he can wind up NATO within 48 hours. He's got almost 50,000 troops hanging around in Europe doing nothing. He's got another 50,000 troops sitting in South Korea, which is there as more of a threat to China. So America is holding the aces, while In contrast, the Russians and the Chinese don't have that many aces at all. China is basically hemmed in by its geographical position. It is very hard pressed. So, in sum total, I will say, gentlemen, as the picture is unfolding at the moment, the Americans are in the ascendant, and I think they will be able to solve the Iran problem very soon because Donald Trump is a man with a mission. And secondly, the Russians will have to accept some sort of a ceasefire with Ukraine. I think the European powers are not keen at all. They want to keep on fighting the Russians, but Russia now doesn't have the capacity. I think it's like the spent force, the bullet you fire and then you can't fire another bullet. That's the crux of the whole issue is going on, gentlemen. And as far as China is concerned, China is deep economic trouble and it needs the Americans' help to come out. So all these three nations are tied up together. They are the three biggest powers in the world. It's a sad commentary that India doesn't feature anywhere in this scheme of things. And that is basically because of the picture being created by the leadership. Mr. Modi is going around all over the world as usual, but I don't know what's he gaining out of it. I mean, he's making a visit now to almost a number of countries like Norway and Netherlands and all that. But there's been some very bad feedback also. Though there's good feedback, he's got a lot of awards and all that. But how those awards are going to translate into what happens to India? India has the biggest bugbear of poverty. How is India going to get out of the poverty? I mean, I don't understand that. 20 crore Indians not having enough food to eat. I'll talk about this in different view in another video. In the meanwhile, I think, gentlemen, I think come to the end of what I wanted to say. It's a rambling video, but I've given you a picture of all the three countries, the major powers. America is definitely riding high, and Russia in the background, no way to go. It's like the end of the alley, and China desperately clutching, looking at becoming a great power with the help of the Americans. And I think I'll close now. I hope you like my video, sir. Please share it with your friends. Subscribe to my channel. Come back again. I look forward to interact with you again and again. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you all. I will say goodbye. God bless and Jai Hind. Take care.